When I first started playing Magic the Gathering back in 2003, I had the feeling that the game would be a part of me for as long as I lived. One of the local stores had a big event where they charged a small price for a ready-made deck, and people would play with them until somebody was crowned a champion. Back in the day, I didn't know that these were called open houses. They were fun. The event costed about 30 Brazilian reais, keeping in mind that the minimum wage in Brazil was around 240 back in the day, but nonetheless it introduced me to a wide array of people of all sorts of different backgrounds and age. At the time, I felt absurdly lucky for sharing a hobby with other kids, teens and adults of all sorts of professions. I remember having a medical doctor coming up to me and saying, "You're pretty good." Then, 2 years later, my access to the hobby started fizzling away. With the current financial situation of my family, finding a way to convince them into buying me a packet of fresh cards for around 15 reais was almost impossible. And since I kinda understood the whole deal, I would feel bad for even asking. Once I got into what most foreigners would see as high school, I once again had the opportunity to get into the hobby. A friend of mine was kind enough to play with me by lending his cards and also using some of my old ones to make up decks on the spot. It was great. No pressure, no format limitation, nothing. Only cool cards making cool stuff. I even got some of my cards apprehended by a teacher for playing with them, and she never gave them back. School came and went, and I had to call it quits. I was not working, but there was no money to be spent in superfluous things. I do remember buying a then called Fat Pack during the terrorist block, but my lack of contacts with players and my social awkwardness wouldn't allow me to approach the scene. It took a great deal of time until I hit 27 and finally got enough money and enough financial stability by my mom getting both her and my father's pension that I had the opportunity to get involved with Magic. And boy, was I excited. A shame I didn't know what formats were. I built a cool mono red standard deck, a very nice barn archetype with the newest card from March of the Machine set. It was working like a dream on Magic Arena, and now I felt confident that I could bring it to the physical tables. Except that no one plays standards in my town, and barely played in any other cities, even the capital, São Paulo, the biggest city in Brazil. Great, I'm now sitting on about 1,000 reais of cards that see no play. What the hell do I do now? Sure, I can invest in another 1,500 bucks in upgrading my list to modern, maybe 800 for Pioneer. Have I mentioned that our minimum wage now is around 1,400 reais? I said fuck it, and I ended up not wanting to spend a whole lot of money so I can be, competitive. Can you hear that? Yeah, it's Commander, and it's here to stay, and looks like a lot of fun. I can play with 3 people at once, great! They have ready-made decks for starter players? They have Warhammer 40k ones? Sign me up. So there goes another 500 reais plus another 100 for some sleeves. I can finally play with some people on my local game network, or my, local game store. Sat down, let people know I was playing with a precon, and I got absolutely steamrolled by a powerful Massland Destruction deck. I immediately regretted my decision. What a waste. But, apparently there's a way to upgrade your precon to the point it's competitive. Alright, I have 600 bucks, filling a hole in my pocket. I can, enjoy now. Have I mentioned that there's no incentive to have a strong deck? In Magic, especially in Commander, you gain nothing. This is not a tournament. Commander is mostly a casual game that's mostly unsanctioned. Great, yeah, whatever. I just spent about 2,500 reais in Magic cards. Am I having fun yet? Well, opening the boosters was pretty fun, if you're into a gambling mood. But thank God, a new local game store opened and I felt much more welcome with the decks that I owned. I started building a burn deck from ground up, and that's currently my pet deck. Then it started. The weapons race, and the search for the silver bullet. We started investing in ways to neutralize each other's decks and make it stronger exclusively for beating our own decks. We were a very tight-knit group of players and we were having fun. But, it has to happen sometime. Somebody went full CEDH and spent upwards of like 10k to get the most competitive 5-color deck that had no stupid cards whatsoever. It ruined the friendship and introduced a sort of I am playing to win and I'm making a fool of you all vibe to the place that I, didn't enjoy very much. Everything came finally crashing down when the player used the Force of Will on a completely unnecessary play just to show that he indeed has a Force of Will. But when I showed up to the game with my allegedly very pretty and high quality printed cards, I noticed the side eyes and an unwelcoming vibe. Apparently I can only play with that which I can pay. People were playing with their wallets instead of their cards. Have I mentioned that these games are completely unsanctioned and have no incentive at all? Oh yeah, I did! It dawned on me that in reality what people were doing was showing off who they were as a person and their value as such on the money that they put down on those cards. That was an investment on their own egos and by that their reason to be. Well, whatever. At that point I had again a new group of people that were very happy on playing with proxies as long as the games were fun for everybody. I kept that standard deck and some of the cards and I ended up being able to get one showdown event at a local game shop. I went 3-3 and got 3rd place that night. I felt great, but at the same time I felt bad after my top meta deck opponent said no to shaking my hand after I won 2-0 against him. I kept going to this local store but I never felt really welcome there, as if my playstyle or myself was kind of an alien to that ambient. New players would pop once in a while only to be paired onto high-powered pods with their precons to never come back. That really bugged me. I still felt some attachment to the idea of being able to compete in the game, and I tried to update my deck without thinking too much about money. That was a bad idea. What I got was a huge wall. People were actively avoiding selling cards to me. Maybe to not have me around or so that those cards were not played against them in a future event. Which got me thinking, what kind of community is actively involved on not accepting new players to their game? Perhaps this is only on my town, but it's scary on how big the animosity towards new player is. Anyone interested in starting in Magic or people who are currently starting were being treated as, weird nuisance and being dismissed altogether. So we have no interest in renewing the community. Metagame decks on the played formats are reaching upwards of 5,000 reais. The minimum wage is still the same. By the time decks weren't hit, I had a good competitive deck that cost me around 1,000 reais, without counting cards that I already owned. I spent a little more to get some land so I could splash into a Gru deck, and a new collection hit, exploding prices and changing the metagame so hard that most of my deck was reduced to a pile of paper, although some cards saw upwards to 400% increase in price. Another thing was revealed to me. Stores and distributors were forming cartels and controlling prices to the point only the richest players could afford to stay competitive. A once open house policy of attracting new players turned into a slot machine of highs and lows. Financialization, how do you write this word? Just a second. Financialization. Is that a word? Financialization. Yeah, it's a word. So the financialization of Magic is an all-time high. And, that took me completely outside of the hobby. For good. It's damaging to me both financially and mentally, Why do I need to spend so much money on something that will never pay for itself? Not only on a financial level, but the relations I have with the players are also on an all-time low. I have completely lost my interest in trying to establish a connection with a community that, especially in my town, is, fairly conservative, and accepts no one except like white males. No women can participate in a commander night without being harassed. No gay person feels welcomed in a place where homophobic jokes are so constant. Black people, will always get the side eye. In case that hurts your principle as a player, you know, I wish you a very good day. Please welcome new players. As I'm trying to do now, curating and creating a new space with people that I like and with the precepts that I like as well. Wizard has completely abandoned this, so it falls into the hands of players, and I mean players, not star owners that once played the game, to rebuild and expand. Be it by proxying and distributing cards or by turning our own books into playable decks for the new generations. I had the pleasure of teaching some new players, kids, women and old people how to play during a huge event, and I hope to create a place that they feel welcome to play and to learn. Magic will never outright die. It's too big to fail, allegedly. But its community is dwindling due to an unwelcome community and predatory consumer tactics. Nothing is helping it, only the players. I hope, things get better. Thank you for listening. Hi there. I wanted to do like a quick cut in and before we ended all this like sad talk about how I suck at Magic the Gathering and Magic the Gathering has betrayed me or whatever, to say that like the future is kind of bright in Brazil right now. Legacy has been, going up in popularity in Brazil thanks to the ability of being able to like proxy and good prizes. Like the last time there were like 90 players and a prize pool of like, I don't know, thousands of reais. And that's great, that's awesome, and I hope that keeps on going, and I hope like the limitations on what you can proxy continue to get down and like be even more open to like bringing a whole proxy deck so you can play. And I love Magic. Magic is one of the best game ever. I have stuff those are some of my decks. I have a new deck that I was working with, and I've even bought like some Dragon Shield, even though they are very expensive in Brazil. And maybe it's not everybody's experience, that shares lots of similarities with me, but with a lot of people that I talk to, and the biggest majority of them complain about how the community doesn't welcome them by who they are, or how they play, or the amount of money they could put in the hobby. And that's my main message in this video. Let's try to strive for like being more welcoming without like, oh, you were proxying, you were ruining the hobby. No, what is ruining the hobby is people like, that try to gatekeep the hobby, and Wizards of the Coast itself. I cannot stand the amount of products that are being like released every single month. Like every 3 months there are like 2 sets or whatever. Nobody has the money to keep up with it. Please stop. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe more to come. I don't know. Bye bye.